Now all we need to do to finish step 3 is to configure R3's interfaces with IPv4 and IPv6 addressing. And then we can move on to step 4, which is to configure R1 and R3 as DHCP servers. So let's do this right away. I'm going to speed through these commands since it's very similar to what we did last time. We have a serial interface to configure, a Gigabit 0/0 interface that goes up here to our test network. This is our IPv6 LAN network. So this interface, Gigabit 0/0, will not have IPv4 addressing, just IPv6. So we'll start off with Gigabit 0/1, and this is the link on router R3 that's a trunk link. So we'll have to set it up with sub interfaces and the 802.1q protocol for trunking. So let's start with that first. I'm going to speed through this. So I go into the interface, and now what I want to do is turn on that interface. So I'll put in a no shut command to enable the interface, and now I can start configuring the sub interfaces. So we'll say interface Gigabit 0/1.15, and you can see I'm instantly put into sub interface configuration mode. Encapsulation .1q, and this will be for VLAN 15. So that sets up our 802.1q protocol, and now I can give it the IP address. So IP address 192.168.15.3. I'll double check my IP address over on here on the list for R3, Gigabit 0/1.15, 15.3. So that's this interface here. I forgot the subnet mask, so I'll put in the subnet mask. And now I can quickly run through those commands again by using up arrow on my keyboard. Subinterface .25, encapsulation .1q 25, and then the IP address 25.3. And subinterface 35. And subinterface .98, but this time for the encapsulation .1q, I'll change it from 88 to 98, and then put in native, since this is going to be the native VLAN. Okay, that looks like all of our sub interfaces. I can do a show run command here. Since I'm in global config mode, if I want to do a show run command, I need to put a do in front of it. So I'll change that to do show run, and that'll let me still execute the command even from global config mode. That looks good. 98, 88, 35, 25, and 15, all .3. And if I look over here, you can see that those are the correct addresses. And now it's time to configure the serial interface. Serial 0/0/1, which is a DTE interface, and it's going to be .6. So 5.6. So let's do that right now. You can see I gave it a 255.255.255.252 subnet mask, and that's because this network is a /30 network in between R2 and R3. So now that Gigabit 0/1 has been configured and interface serial 0/0/1, the last thing to configure is the Gigabit 0/0 interface, and this is going to be our IPv6 interface. So if we look over here, we can see here, let's see here, Gigabit 0/0, and here are the addresses that we need to give that interface. So let's just do that quickly. Exit, get back to global config mode, and type IPv6 unicast-routing to enable IPv6 routing on the router. So now IPv6 is enabled, and I'll go into Gigabit 0/0. The first thing I'll do is set the IPv6 address FE80:3 link-local. So that will set the link local address. I'll just double check my numbers here. Yes, FE80:3 link local. So that is for the link local address. And now for our global unicast address, it's going to be 2001:DB8:, I believe it's DC:1. Let's just double check that. DB8 DC:1:1. Okay. :1/64-bit network prefix. So that is the global unicast address. Then I'll do a no shut command to bring up the interface. Control-C, copy, run start, and review our configurations. And Gigabit 0/0, you can see here no IPv4 address on this interface, just an IPv6 link local address and an IPv6 global unicast address. I almost forgot. If we look at the topology diagram, you can see here that we have loopback interfaces that we need to configure on router R3. Also, under step 3, it says right here, R3 loopback interfaces with IP addresses. So let's set up these loopback interfaces. These are virtual interfaces on router R3 that we're going to set up for testing purposes. They're not actual interfaces, they're virtual interfaces, but they can receive an IP address and they can respond to pings and things of that nature. And but they're basically virtual interfaces that go nowhere. They go basically to a null zero route. They don't exit an interface. So what I'll do is we'll go back in, we'll make sure we get those in there too. Okay, conf T to get to global config mode, and interface LO for loopback, and I believe it's 0. So the first one is 0. Loopback 0 will be 172.16.4.1. So we'll go into the interface. Notice that it automatically changes state to up, and then we can just give it an IP address. And a subnet mask. And there we go. And then up arrow, and we'll do the same thing for interface 1. We'll just do up address, and this should be 5.1. And then up arrow, we'll change this to loopback 2 now. And this one will be IP address 6.1. And then loopback 3, which will be 7.1. All right, we'll exit and exit again and save our configuration. And look at our configuration to verify how it looks. There's loopback 0. 4.1, 5.1, 6.1, and 7.1, loopback 3. You can look at the diagram and see that that's what we needed to set up. Now we're done, and we can move on to step 4, configuring R1 as a DHCPv4 server and R3 as a stateless DHCP version 6 server.